Hi guys, I'm Mandy Vaughn and I am here to talk to you about yarn and crochet and knitting and pretty much everything that falls along those lines that encapsulates the whole fiber arts community. So I am a knitter and I also crochet and I machine knit and I would love to weave, but I've kind of been putting this off for a while. I have a lot of hobbies and I don't want to add another one, especially not like weaving or spinning, although I do love like the idea of them, right? Because they're involving yarn and I love yarn. Anyways, I have been missing for a couple of weeks. I've been recovering from a lower lumbar spinal surgery where they removed a tumor from my back. That went well, and I'll tell you all about it a little bit later in the video in case you're not interested. I have a couple of finished objects to show you, one of which I'm wearing right now. I have a work in progress and a future cast on that's crochet that my daughter has been asking for like over and over again. So fair warning, I didn't knit as much as I had wanted to while I was recovering from surgery. I was in a lot of pain during that time. So what I basically did was focus on things that I had finished or almost finished, you know what I mean? Things that were like 95% finished, and then I just worked on those while I recovered. The first finished object that I did was this Ripple Lake cardigan, and this is by Joji Locatelli. And I love it, and I love the color. The yarn is, it's the color Cyan in Malabrigo Arroyo. So I picked this yarn up when we went to a yarn store in Frankenmuth called, I believe, Rapunzel's Boutique. And the ladies there were really nice and helped me find some matching yarn. I actually ordered 2 extra yarns because they didn't have as many as I needed at Rapunzel's Boutique. So I picked some up from a yarn store in Ohio online called Around the Table Yarns, and I've heard good things about them, so I wanted to support their business and picked up a couple of extra skeins. Now, this cardigan took around 1,000 yards of yarn. It wasn't that big. It does not go that far down. Sorry, I can't stand. If you're a new viewer, I'm paralyzed, so from my, we're gonna say belly button down, I have very limited movement, so I'm not going to be able to stand to show you. I'm sorry. But as you can see here, it's not very long. This cardigan is worked sideways, which I really love the construction of. You basically work 2 panels, the right side and the left side, and then you graft them together, and then you graft the under the underarms, and you can pick up the arms. Now, I had originally wanted to do longer arms, but I started thinking about it, right? So we have this beautiful lace pattern, and the arms are basically garter stitch. And I was thinking, well, if I do longer arms, I'm going to need some sort of lace on the arms. And then with the surgery coming up, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to forego doing that on this particular version. And maybe in the future, I'll feel like kind of extending the arms out with a lace pattern. But I do like it, and I think that it's super cute and comfy. It reminds me of a cardigan that I've knit before called the Hirofude. I cannot remember who made the pattern, so I will put it down below, but it's a beautiful cardigan just like this, and it's knit, I believe, sideways as well. At least part of it is. It has an interesting construction too. My version is in like a bubblegum hot pink, and it's one of my favorites to wear. This yarn is super light. They consider Arroyo like they consider it, what do they consider it? A DK, but it's more like a sport. I wouldn't go as far as saying this was DK. Now, I did make a couple of modifications because this cardigan is supposed to be knit and fingering, and for once I did not knit it in fingering weight. Usually fingering weight is my happiest weight of sweater, and I just love knitting with it, but not for this one. I fell in love with this yarn color, and I'm like, okay, I think that I really want to make the Ripley cardigan with it. So some of the things I had to pay attention to because I was using a different weight of yarn was, since it was knit sideways, it is longer than what it was originally intended to be. So whenever I picked up the neck, I did some decreases, and the neck kind of curves like this. And I did that on purpose so that the bottom part of the neckline would kind of bring up the edge of the cardigan to almost be like a waterfall. Does that make sense? Like that shape. Hohi did a great job with this pattern. She walks you through how to do a box pleat on the back, which I've never done before, and I really love how it how the box pleat turned out. It wasn't that difficult either, so I was very excited to both be able to knit lace that looks this impressive. You know, the lace pattern is not very complicated. I did use stitch markers between each repeat, and you know, I put lifelines in whenever I was done with a full repeat of the chart. But that's pretty common for how I treat lace. Even if it's super easy, I will go through and use as many stitch markers as I can, just because I hate taking back lace, and since these tools are available to me, I might as well use them. Now, this is like I said, I made the neckline kind of go up. You can kind of see it, but it's definitely something that I'd love to knit again. The yarn is very soft. Whenever I cast this on, and I did pretty much everything up to the neckline and the grafting together, and then the sleeves. So whenever I got out of the hospital, I had figured that I would rather do round and round knitting, but that turned out to be wrong. For some reason, grafting kind of appealed to me, which sounds very odd, but I think it was enough of a distraction without being too hard. So what I did was basically finish this neckline and then graft it together, and then the sides together, and that served as kind of a distraction while I healed from some of the more tougher days of my surgery. Now, I have a couple of more finished objects. Now, if you've seen an episode before, you've definitely seen this blanket. This is probably my most favorite blanket ever. Blanket pattern ever. It is a star. And you can't really see it, and there's going to be no way I'm going to be able to like hold it up and get it into the camera. So I will put up a picture right here of how it looks completely done. But this was done with a Karen Cake mega bundle, and it had, I think, like around 1,100 yards in it, and I just crocheted and crocheted and crocheted until I was done. And that's generally my favorite I really appreciate blankets where you can just work and work and work and work and then you're done. Does that make sense? I have a granny square blanket started, and I have quite a bit of squares, and I still do squares, but the problem is I'm gonna have to sit down and think about how to piece those squares together. And the next time I do a granny square blanket, I'm going to have to pre-plan to make sure that I join as I go, because otherwise I'm not doing it, not ever again. I don't like piecing things together. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the way the black granny squares look, but there's gotta be a way you can join those squares together and add on as you're going. And that's just gonna be how I have to do it from now on, because otherwise you get to 200 squares in and it starts to get so overwhelming. But that's gonna be a project for another time. This blanket is for my daughter. She is 8 years old and she loves throw blankets like this. I will make her a blanket and make her a blanket and make her a blanket, and she uses them all. She rotates them back and forth. She lays them down on the floor and plays with her stuffed animals with them. And I love to see that they're being used and appreciated. So as long as she likes them, I will keep making them. Now, I've recently made 2 star blankets for my husband's coworker. They had a new baby boy and then an older daughter, and I actually got pictures of the older daughter with her blanket. I can't show you, obviously, because it's not, I wouldn't want to put someone's child up on the internet, but they're so, you'll have to take my word for it, they're adorable. So I'm glad that other people like the star blankets as well. Now, I actually have a plan to make my daughter something else that isn't technically, it's not technically a blanket, right? But you'll see in just a little bit. So I've been working with the Joji Locatelli make-along since, when did it start? Did it start in September? I think it started in September. So I've made 3 cardigans, 1 sweater, and 2 hats. This is my 3rd cardigan. So this is like a cloud. I have interesting thoughts on this. And so first of all, this is 4 inches of ribbing. Actually, hang on, I'm gonna put this on because this is like a cloud and it's super comfy. Now, I used a yarn that was mohair and acrylic, and although I'm going to no doubtedly hand wash it, I could probably wash this in the washer and dryer because the amount of mohair is so tiny. But if I were going to do that, I would definitely swatch first and use the swatch to test it. So this is a knit and purl, kind of a ribbing pattern, kind of not. It's just basically knits and purls. I loved working on the pattern because it was super calming and relaxing, and once you had the pattern, you had the pattern and you knew what you were doing, and that was pretty much it. Now, there wasn't a lot of shaping, and if you'll look here, there is no neck band, right? So you work the back, there's a back panel, and then you attach the front, and then you attach the front. And eventually, when you get far enough below the sleeves, you attach them all together there and there, and then you can work around. So I made the body of mine shorter than I would have if I wasn't wheelchair bound. Does that make sense? So whenever you are, I don't want to say stuck because that sounds awful. When you're when you're sitting for most of your time and you can't stand up to transfer into anything, into like bed or whatever, things tend to drag underneath you. So I've started favoring making my sweaters just a tiny bit shorter than I would if I were standing up. This goes down to about the part, it goes down right to where my thigh is. So if I were to stand, it would be considered cropped, right? I'm not a fan of cropped, and like I said, if I were standing, I would have made it longer, but I just figured since this is both acrylic and mohair, I didn't really want to add any undue wearing, especially to the bottom, than I had to. I was going to add a neckband or something to the edges here, but in the end I decided against it. And if I were to knit this cardigan again, I would pay very close attention to the edges of this, and I would have slipped accordingly. For some reason in my mind, as I was making this cardigan, I thought that there was some type of finishing or just about anything, so I didn't bother to slip, which sounds bad, awful, but if you're picking up the stitches, it matters less if the edge is clean than if you're not doing anything to it. I mean, you can still tell if you look very closely if the stitches aren't slipped, but it's not going to be something that people are going to pick up on. I love this. It is soft and very light. The sleeves are pretty long, which I'm actually liking because my hands have been cold lately. So I would definitely make this again. I would absolutely love to make this in like a Surrey alpaca. Maybe like a mulberry silk, some sort of combination. Something that's not mohair. I believe that the general swap from mohair is a Surrey alpaca, and I've used it before, and I would love to make something like this out of it, but I'm just not there yet. It's very expensive to buy hand-dyed Surrey alpaca or mohair to make a garment, especially one that's this oversized, right? So I just used some bargain acrylic mohair, and you know what? I like the way it turned out, so I'm pretty happy with it. Okay, so I have a finished object that you guys have not seen. You haven't seen any of the creation of it, right? So the thing about this hat is I started it I'm gonna say April, when I was in and out of the hospital dealing with my hip infection and septic arthritis. I have a really deep love for the Musselburgh hat. So this is what I have right here. Now, if you've never seen a Musselburgh, let me explain kind of how it's put together really quick. So we have this. This is a tube that's closed at this end over here, and it's closed at this end. Now, you're going to take one side and push it into the other side. And you're gonna do this because that's how I kind of even it out. And then you have a hat. Now, I make my Musselburghs with a full skein of fingering weight yarn. And this yarn was a Woolens and Nosh colorway, and I cannot remember what it's called, but it has something to do with mermaids. So if I can find in my email what this colorway is called, I will put it down below. But it is super happy, and I love these colors. This was made for my daughter, and I don't know if you can tell, but she's definitely already got her hands on it. She is a big fan of everything rainbow and everything pink and bright color. I mean, I am too, so she gets it from somewhere, right? But these are definitely adorable hats. Now, a muscle burrow is a lot of like round and round knitting, and that's why I recommend this hat pattern for anyone who just wants to kind of check out and just go back and forth around and around. I end up doing a crochet pinhole cast on. Is that what it's called? I believe so. And you can kind of see, because you start at one end, you start at just a teeny tiny bit, and you kind of work out with increases. Now, the cool thing about this pattern is that you swatch as you go. So you can pick any yarn and any any needle, and you just work up until, I believe, 1 inch, and then you take your gauge and you figure out where you're going from there. So I've always made these in fingering weight yarn. And in fact, I've kind of thought in my head, well, what happens if I try it in DK? Would 1 skein of DK be enough to make a muscle burrow? I don't know. I don't know. I wish I knew. If you know, please comment down below, because I have some single skeins of DK that I would love to turn into hats. Now, these hats are nice and warm and very non-gender, they're very unisex. So my son wears them, my daughter wears them, I wear them, and depending on how cold it is, you can either roll them up once or kind of double layer the ears. And that's great, especially in Michigan. You know, we live in southeastern Michigan where it's getting to be pretty cold, right? By the way, I did not say this. Today is the day after Thanksgiving. It is probably the first day since my surgery I felt like actually sitting up and being able to record a podcast. So I love this hat, and now I have plans. Let's see, it's just a little bit until December 1st. So I have an advent that I want to work on. My advent is from Blackbird Sycamore Yarns, and I've decided that I'm going to work on that throughout December. I don't know what I'm going to make yet. I don't know. Part of me wants to make a cardigan, and part of me thinks I should make a blanket. So it's going to be more than likely one of those. Now, I also have some yarn, and it's little mini skeins that are in a like beautiful Christmas colors without being too Christmassy colors, and I really want to make 2 hats, one for each kid, that I'll kind of like switch up the colors just so that they're a little bit different. And I might make the inside, what is it? The Odd Stripes hat by Joji Locatelli. The only problem is the fingering yarn that I have, the holiday colors, they're in fingering, and the pattern is in worsted. So that's a huge difference. What I'll probably end up doing is taking the circumference of the muscle burrow and then casting on and following the directions of the Odd Stripes. If you take a look at the Odd Stripes pattern, you'll see what I mean. There's a very specific yet easy to follow. Basically half the hat is knit and half the hat is purled, and you stripe the colors so the stripes look really cool, and I think that those would make really neat holiday hats. I would make a muscle burrow, but with only a set of the fingering weight minis, I'm not gonna get 2 hats out of it, right? So I need one for both of the kiddos. So yes, my plans for the next month are, by next month I mean my plans for December. My plans for December are to cast on that advent calendar and work it like you would an advent calendar. I still have to figure out what I'm doing, but that's beside the point. And then I'm going to make 2 hats for my kids. And then, okay, so like I said, I have an 8-year-old. And as an 8-year-old, she is very, very particular on what she likes. So the other day, she was playing with a mermaid tail that I made her. So I made her this mermaid tail on the way back from the Cleveland Clinic. And we went to the Cleveland Clinic to check out everything going on with my back the February before the pandemic. So we came back and basically another month and the whole pandemic started. So she's obviously outgrown the mermaid tail. And so she was asking me, I think last week, she goes, Mom, can you make me another mermaid tail, please? This one's getting too small. And I'm like, okay, sure. I mean, it's the pattern that I use. I believe it's called Sophie's mermaid tail blanket. I'll put it down below. It is knit with worsted weight yarn, and it comes in 2 sizes, medium and large. Last time I made her the large, I think, or maybe it was the medium. But either way, I have different plans this time. So I had her go out to Michael's, yeah. Okay, wherever you get loops and threads, I'm almost positive it's Michael's. So she picked out this color, and they got 2 of these. Now, this yarn is not super thick. It says it's medium 4, but I kind of don't buy it. It seems to me like it's closer to a DK. But with all that being said, it's crochet, and crochet is kind of easy to adjust as you go along. So the way that I'm going to work the mermaid tail blanket is I'm going to hold these 2, since we bought 2 of them, I'm going to hold the yarn together and see what I come up with. There's a chance that it might turn out completely terrible, but we're gonna see and try it out, right? It's crochet, and it's just yarn. You can always just rip it out and try again. So the way that the blanket is worked is you work the bottom of the tail, the fin, first. It's worked sideways, and then you pick up and you kind of work in the round and work the tail. So it should be pretty easy. If the pattern doesn't seem big enough, I can always like rip out the tail, the blanket part, and kind of make it a little bit bigger. One thing I do love about crochet is I'm a little bit more comfortable with being able to adjust it ad hoc, kind of like, hey, I can add a couple more stitches here, it'll be okay. Now, don't get me wrong, I do that with knitting too, but I'm just a little bit more comfortable with it. Anyways, this yarn is the color Blush, and this is probably my daughter's favorite color in the entire world. Like I said, it is 100% acrylic. It is a medium weight yarn, and they recommend using a 5mm US 8 or a 5mm crochet hook. So that is what I'm going to try to do in the next week. You know, this is a huge skein of yarn. This has 812 yards and it's 16 ounces. So that's 742 meters and 453.6 grams. That's incredible, right? I mean, when you think of how, like, when you get sock yarn, it's 100 grams, and this is worse. Sock yarn would be like 450-ish, you know, around there, for 100 grams. And then you have this is worsted, it's 812 yards. So I definitely appreciate that it's in a big big skein, a big put up, so that way there's less ends to weave in and stuff like that. So let me think for a little bit. I have one more thing, and this is kind of my project that I'm working on as we speak. So this is a flax sweater, and this is an adult extra small flax sweater for my son. So as you can see, I've knit the body down quite a bit, but I don't want to say gave up. I kind of decided on a whim that I'm going to work the sleeves. I'm at the ribbing. I'm almost done with this sleeve. Then I'm going to work the other sleeve, and then I'll just use the rest of the yarn that I have to finish the body as long as I can and pick up the neckline. So this pattern, in case you don't know, is by Tin Can Knits, and it's a pretty popular free pattern. There are two options on how to knit the neckline. There's actually a ton of options throughout the whole pattern, so let me walk through what I did here. I chose option 2, which for the neckline, which is basically saying, hey, I'm going to cast on as many stitches as I need after the neckline, and I will go back later after the fact and pick up the ribbing. This makes it a little bit more sturdy, so your neck doesn't kind of stretch out. When my kids were little, it didn't matter, but now that they're getting older, especially my son, I want to make sure that he has enough structure there. As you can see, these are all of my decreases. I used the little light bulb stitch markers to mark my decreases, so I don't have to keep track any other way. Same thing with the sleeves. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but the back is longer than the front. You can tell a little bit there. I have it on a smaller needle because it makes it go by faster, but one of the things that the flax also has options for is adding short rows, and this was the first time that I added short rows to a flax, and I'm liking it. I really did like how it worked. I made the same exact sweater in the same exact yarn, and let me pull it out. This is the yarn that I have left. This is Hobie, what is it? It's cookie yarn. So I made this same exact sweater and the same exact colorway, and it was meant to be for my son, but I said, hey, let's give this to my nephew, because I didn't have the short rows, and I thought that my son would probably need the short rows. It wouldn't last him as long as it could have, and my nephew is younger than my daughter, so he'll have the opportunity to wear it for longer. But this is kind of like a blue purple color, and my son really liked it, so that's what we ended up with. I'm not expecting this to take a ton of time. I was able to knit this whole sleeve in a little last night and then this morning. So I'll pick up the other sleeve and, like I said, knit. I'm going to knit the rest of the sleeve, and then knit this sleeve, and then I'll pick up the collar, and then I could use all the extra yarn on the bottom. I wanted to do it this way because I've only got, let's see, I have this yarn left, and then I actually have a teeny tiny bit right here from my nephew's flax. So it will be enough one way or another. Well, I know it should be enough because, hang on, I'm gonna logic this. Because I was able to knit a sweater that fit my son out of the skein, one of these whole skeins with this left over. And I'm pretty sure this should be more than enough for the short rows. So if you followed that, congratulations, because I barely followed it. I think that's pretty much all of the knitting and the crocheting that I've been doing. Like I said, it's been kind of a very slow return back to all the crafty things. I'm going to talk just a teeny tiny bit about what happened and basically my surgery and stuff. I'll keep the books and everything out this time. I have not really read very much lately. The books that I have read, I've basically listened to a chapter and then given up on because I did not have the headspace that I needed. So I had surgery on November, I can't remember if it was 6th or 5th. So it was whatever one was the Monday. I had surgery on that day. We ended up going to the hospital at 6. We had to be there at 6:15 in the morning, so that was our check-in time. The surgery was supposed to start at 8:15, but they had to actually move me around. They postponed my surgery until 10:15 because what they call the neuromodulation team, I guess it's the team that checks your nerves as they're doing things, which is very important, didn't make it there in time, and they really needed to be there for my surgery. So that was no big deal. So after I went to sleep for the surgery, we're going to say 10 o'clock. I did not wake up until 7:30. So my surgery was 7:30 p.m. I did not wake up until then. My surgery was quite an interesting one. They told me it was the most complex one in the block that day. And when I was in the hospital, one of the residents, the neurosurgical residents, came in and basically said that we're really glad that we did the surgery. It was most definitely a tumor that was in your spine. I mean, we're glad that we removed it, but we don't know how much of a benefit it's going to have because my nerves were pretty screwed up in there. So at least the tumor is out. So I'm looking on the bright side. The tumor is out, and it doesn't seem like things got drastically worse. I've kind of, since my surgery, I've kind of been, what's the word where you pull yourself, like, I've kind of been cocooning myself in, like, warm blankets and stuff because I've been in a lot of pain. The surgery, the incision itself did not cause pain. If all I had was the incision on my back, I wouldn't have been in much pain at all. But the thing is, when they took the tumor out, I woke up and I was having immense nerve pain. If you've never had nerve pain before, you are so lucky. I wish I could be you. Basically what it amounted to was below my belly button, I would have shooting, zapping, burning, tingling, picking, sledgehammering, electrocuting pain, and we're talking every 3 seconds. So it was very, 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 very often. Things like opioids never work for my nerve pain. The only thing I found that works for nerve pain for me is ibuprofen, and it wasn't even doing a good job then. So I've been on Tylenol and ibuprofen since I got home from the hospital, and it's just been a thing. I'm very thankful for my husband for being awesome. He's done a great job in trying to get heating packs and ice packs and just trying to make me as comfortable as possible. I've had to wake him up in the middle of the night just because I've been so awful. We'll just go with that. So anyways, things are starting to look up and my pain is starting to, it's going away. I've gone from terrible days to, today was pretty good, so I can't complain. Other than that, that's pretty much all that's to do with my surgery. I have a checkup on the December 19th to get cleared for all the everything that, the long distance marathon running I'll be doing and stuff. But I'm hoping that when I go back to the doctors, I can get a prescription for physical therapy and we'll just go from there. I'll do my best no matter what that looks like. I'll make sure to do whatever my personal best is. So I'm looking forward to it. I really do enjoy physical therapy as a whole. So other than that, I don't have much to talk about. I'm hoping that next time I see you guys, I will have a good start on this crochet project. And I don't think it'll be December the next time I see you. I don't think so, but it might be. If it is, I'll have started on my Advent project, whatever that is. Anyways, thank you if you're new or returning. I appreciate that you took the time to hang out with me. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. I love hearing from you guys. I will look forward to the next time that we can hang out. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.